My name is Alex Del Sordo, and I'm with my father, Sam Del Sordo, here at Finish Line Shelter.
Hey, 20 and race face!
This is the Rower's Choice Podcast.
This is Alex Del Sordo with another Rower's Choice podcast, Zoomcast, whatever you want to call it. In the age of coronavirus, we are now getting video when we never had a chance to do video. So I'm with, after some research, a bit of a legend in the rowing world, Susan Smith, the CEO of the CEO of US Rowing, our governing body here in the United States. And we're going to talk today about her background in rowing, some of the accomplishments that she has had. And if everyone in US Rowing knows, she has transitioned into this new position. So we're going to talk about that. And then also what US Rowing is doing in the age of coronavirus. So Susan, thank you for being part of this podcast interview thing.
Sure.
So let's get right into it. So what I always do with every person I interview, we talk about the rowing background, where you started, why you started rowing, and then what led you to being with US Rowing. So talk to us about your background in rowing.
Sure. So I found the sport for my son Nathan.
Oh.
When he was in middle school. And actually, that would have been 2007, but I have to backtrack another 20 years. And that's when I was working for Corning in commercial development in upstate New York. And I worked with a guy, Fred Borchelt, you may know him. Mm-hmm. He was in the 8 that won gold in the 84 Olympics.
Oh, wow.
And, he was a rower. And I had never been exposed to rowing, and I thought, well, that's interesting, and he's an Olympic silver medalist. So Fred and I became friends, and then we fast forward 20 years, and my son is in middle school, hasn't found his sport yet. Tried soccer, basketball, baseball, nothing really worked out. Then I remembered rowing, and I thought, I wonder if there's any summer camps, any rowing summer camps. And there were. So I registered him for camp.
And which camp was this? Like, where were you living at the time?
So we're living just outside of Philly. We're in southern Chester County. So we're equidistant between Wilmington, Delaware, and Philly. So I registered him in WYRA, Wilmington Youth Rowing Association, which is in Delaware. And he loved it. It started out as just the morning, and he came back. I picked him up. He said, "Mom, this is great." And I registered him morning, afternoons.
Oh, as much as you could.
Summer.
I get it. Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
You find that thing, and I'd say the rest is history. Nathan rowed 4 years in high school, then went on to row at Cal, and in the meantime, I helped started a youth rowing club in Delaware, then a high school team.
Wow. So let's talk about the fact that you co-founded rowing programs. I mean. What? I mean, you were a mom that just really loved rowing for her son, and now you're founding clubs? Like, what happened there?
Well, maybe I was one of those moms. What happened is he got in a youth rowing program, and it was a great program, but they weren't really investing in equipment. These kids were rowing, practicing very hard. In the middle of a race, their equipment would break down. And there were a few other things. It happens every place. It wasn't just specific for me. So I got together these 2 other folks and said, "Hey, what do you think about starting a youth rowing club?" And we decided that we would take a week and do kind of a feasibility analysis.
Wow.
I'm an engineer. I have my MBA. That's kind of where my head is, and so everybody divided up their things, and we came back and said, "You know what? We think we can do this." And we had that discussion. It was May 27th, 2010, and we had kids on the water with new equipment,
Wow.
with boat launches, September 18th of 2010.
So let's talk about that transition, right? Those 4, 5, 6 months. So,
Yeah.
so many programs that we talk to on a daily basis struggle starting, right? Getting equipment, getting quality coaches, getting organized. I mean, is there any advice you would give, let's say, a parent or a coach who says, I really want to start a rowing program? What, maybe a couple bullet points on what they can do?
Well, you've gotta sell the story. It's got to be about the story. We had no place. We did not have a boat yard. We did not have a boat club. We had no facility. And so what I did, because my background was also I did internet marketing, web design. So I literally took a picture of the Camden County Boathouse.
Beautiful place, yeah.
Oh yeah, beautiful. I photoshopped it, put some filters on it, and said, "This is what we want." And
you photoshopped an image to get people bought into the story. I love that. I love it.
Yes. I mean, it's all about the story, right? We had nothing. We had a head coach, but we had nothing else. And it was literally just having people buy into your vision that, hey, this can happen. Remind them with some strong images. And I'll tell you, we had kids. We had a 4, and it kind of makes me messed up now. But we had a 4 of junior men and a 4 of junior women coming down head of the Charles for that.
I just got chills. Come on, I just got chills.
I know.
I love that.
I know. I mean, I had my sunglasses on. I'm bawling because. How awesome is that? And so, yeah, I mean, it's about having a vision, building the story, and getting people around you to support that.
Yeah,
and it was also what we also did. We had a major donor who we called our angel, who literally set us up with boat launches, brand new Honda engines, and 24 ergs.
I mean, you're lucky there. You can't shake that. I like your buying of the vision and the story. That's that is our MO at Rower's Choice. It is a constant struggle to get people to buy into the image and the vision of what we're creating. So I think you and I share that. I guess that understanding, right? You need to get people bought into a story and a vision. Have you? I mean, do you row?
Well, actually, when Nathan went off to Cal, I said to my husband, "Okay, we've got to get in a boat." So we took our first learn to row, and we became racers. We rowed for Wilmington Rowing Center, which is basically a master's club. And now, the past few years have been very busy for me. So what my husband did was bought me a single, and so we've got a reservoir close by, and we're learning how to scull now.
Oh, that's beautiful. So. I mean, I'm glad to hear that you picked up rowing because you're doing all the other things you could do in rowing anyway. So might as well row in a boat. So now, when did you decide, or what took your career to start with US Rowing? Like when did all that happen?
So about the same time, I was doing some consulting for US Rowing. Again, as I mentioned, I was doing web design, internet marketing. I was doing editing of videos for US Rowing. And the then CEO, Glenn Mary, they had a vacancy for membership, the director of member services. And he said, "Hey, what do you think? Do you want to do it?" And I said, sure. Because what I really wanted to do is to be able to affect the sport of rowing at the national level. And, Director of Member Services is kind of a neat place to get started.
It is. So now what year was this?
2014. So I've been at US Rowing as of this September. It'll be for 6 years.
That's a long time. Now, not a lot of people go from Director of Member Services to the CEO. Walk me through the last, say, 12 months of being at US Rowing, because it is the biggest governing body of rowing. There's tens of thousands of members. I want to know what that transition was like for you in the beginning.
Well, I have to say, because many people might not know this, I had practice because in 2017, I stepped in as interim CEO too. That was when Glenn Mary retired and 4 of our board members walked away. And so we were in a bit of an upheaval. Megan O'Leary, who is still one of our national team athletes, she stepped in as interim chair, and the board asked me to step in as interim CEO. And a very interesting time. We were conducting a national search. It took about 6-7 months, and then we had a CEO, and that was Patrick McNerney. And What Patrick did was, he kept on asking me, well, why didn't you want this job? And I said, well, there's plenty of work to be done around here. And, I see a CEO's job as being more outward facing, more strategic, versus what I was doing at that time, more internal, kind of an operations person. So what he did then is reorganize the organization, and had me lead the domestic side of the organization. So there was national teams and then everything else.
Wow.
And so I ran everything else.
So you've already done this interim CEO thing for a bit. So what's different between 2017 and then 2020? What's been the biggest change?
Well, they threw in a pandemic.
They sure did.
Yeah. As everyone says, these are unprecedented times, and they are. I'd say, what we've tried to do as an organization and myself during this time is to communicate as much as we can with information that we have and that we don't have. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this. Not only because you are great guys and you're offering this service to the rowing community, but we need to get out there and let folks know what's happening. And so we started a COVID-19 page on our website so that we could provide information, and it's usually daily to the rowing community. We've got, our weekly newsletter. We send out email blasts on, kind of the late breaking, really important news. And then we're utilizing our social media channels.
Sure are. What's been the biggest challenge when this pandemic hit? What was probably the hardest things that you had to deal with as an organization?
Revenue generation. In the end, we are still a business. We're a nonprofit business, but we are a business, and we have expenses. We have a staff. And when revenues plummeted, and they did mid-March, once we canceled our spring championships, not only were we expecting a drop in our regatta entry fees, but we knew membership dues would decrease. And they did, especially for our juniors, because spring season is all about racing for juniors.
Yeah.
Juniors make up 50% of our members.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then there's a cancellation of the collegiate season.
Yeah.
So U23, so high school and collegiate makes up 70% of our membership. So when you think about that, you think about, wow, we've got a problem. So we were on top of it. We saw it coming. We applied for a couple low interest SBA loans,
Sure.
the EIDL, and then the PPP that just came out. We've reached out to donors and partners for assistance, but unfortunately we had to make reductions to our workforce. We had layoffs, furloughs, and those folks that are around US Rowing have taken pay cuts.
You know what's, let me close the door really quick. Hang on. You know, what I really appreciate hearing is you have an MBA, you understand business. And I think so few, and this is really important for coaches and people in US Rowing to understand, it is a business. There are staff and people that are affected massively by this. And I think what you just said is the hardest thing is, you're right, is revenue generation. That without the regattas, without the attendance, without the membership, we don't have a US Rowing. Like, we don't have the staff to support and grow. And I really want people to bring that home to them, like, to really understand that we need the things in rowing to keep this organization going. And I got to say, as a business owner myself, I'm sorry you're going through this. This is a huge challenge. And we're doing the same things. We filed for the SBA loans on the Maryland side. We just applied for the PPP, and you know this, like, it's a mess. I don't know if we're going to get the money, and I don't know when it's going to come. And we still have employees. So yeah, I got to say, you're preaching here to the choir, but I really want people to know, and when they hear this and watch this, that it stinks and it's horrible that we're not racing. Like, we all know that, right? That's our lifeblood of rowing, but it's also impacting the people that work at US Rowing and the future of US Rowing. So it brings me to another, a nice transition is, where do you see US Rowing heading in the next 6 months? Like, what do you think is going to happen, not just with rowing, but like with your organization?
Well, I've said it before, there's nothing like a pandemic that focuses an organization. And so there's been a lot of things that we've done. When your business model is upended, then you say, what now? And you start getting really, really creative. So, currently what we've been able to do, and I think you've seen it, 2 weeks ago, we started webinars.
Yeah.
These weekly webinar series have been very, very popular. Most of them are, reach our registration limit, which is 500.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're recording them. So they're free to members to attend, all levels. And then the complete recordings starting this week, they will be available to all of our Basic Plus and Championship members. The first 2 weeks we made the recordings free to everybody, and you can find them in the webinar section of our website.
I'm gonna check them out.
So we've got that. I mean, what's been really interesting is that not only are they popular for participants, but they're popular for presenters. I mean, we've had rowing royalty as presenters. This week, Steve Gladstone is doing a webinar on selection.
Yep. I love that.
Right? And last week we had Dr. Anna Swisher from USA Weightlifting, who did a very popular webinar on recovery. So, I mean, we've got people who want to give back to the rowing community. Their seasons are gone. We've been talking about doing these webinars for years, but we're usually busy running, championships, regional and national championships. So we said, okay, this is a great time to do it. And so we've been doing that. Again, the thought process here is, how do we provide more value to our members? Yep. Just so that they not only look at us as that organization that runs regattas. We want to give them more other reasons to engage with us as an organization. So we've also rolled out in the past few weeks something called Rowing Rewards, which is...
I love that. That is...
Isn't it great?
Awesome.
Isn't it great?
Talk to me more about that, how you got that created and how all that works. Because when I got that email, I probably spent an hour looking through it and seeing what I can use and utilize that. So tell me more about that.
So Tracy Stocker, our Director of Member Services, she had been looking for member benefits. And we had gotten in contact with a couple of other companies that provide these kind of member services to alumni groups. Mm-hmm. And so we found this company called Perk Spot, and they provided exactly what we wanted, and so they were able to give us a kind of a all-in system, a branded system, and again, it's we provide 2 levels where we have the Rowing Rewards, the basic level, and then Rowing Rewards Gold for our higher level members. Obviously, we'd like to see people upgrade to become, champs or basic plus. But, even at the basic level, it provides a lot of discounts for national brands as well as local merchants.
Oh, I love it. It hit my inbox, and I was not expecting it. I thought it was very clever on your part to do that. That's a very smart approach.
Yeah, and then there's what we're doing with you guys is these virtual championships. So in addition to the one that we're working with you on, we're actually we're talking with C2. They're interested in kind of co-creating a couple of challenges, and I think these are more for masters.
Yeah, sure.
And what we're also doing, we'll be rolling out very, very soon. And, this is the first time that we talk about it on this podcast. But we're going to be replacing what we affectionately refer to as our Spring Youth Series. Well, it's going to be the Spring Virtual Youth Series. Ooh. So we're going to do regional virtual championships. We're going to do a youth national championship. But in addition to, what we've done and try to do on the water, what we're also going to be adding are all region teams and an all-American team. So coming out of these regional championships and the national championship, will be awarding all region teams and all American teams. And this is another opportunity for these kids to, add something to their college application. Wow. To differentiate themselves. So, we're not ready to say goodbye to the spring season. It's just going to be a different season for these kids.
I think that's really clever, and I'm really happy to hear that. Now that's a really good transition into a question that kind of popped up in my head here. It's the U.S. national team has one more year for the Olympics. What are you doing, or what has been the discussion internally of how you're going to support those athletes to get ready?
Right. So we're still finding out from the USOPC, what is going to happen to the rest of the grants that we get for 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've indicated, although we don't know for sure, maybe it's hopeful thinking that our grant will be the same. And that grant is partial support to our national team, as well as the NRF grant provides support to our national team. Right now, everybody's sheltering in place. We've literally taken a pause on our training centers. We're thinking about 90 days. So, what we're trying to do is just to preserve the monies that we have, because we may need to have a reserve going into 2021.
That makes total sench. And you guys are operating on a tight budget as it is. I mean, I know the U.S. national team doesn't get a lot of funding in general. So now so you're the perfect person to ask this question. How do you think our national team would have done this year in the Olympics? How do you think the men's eight,
awesome.
Awesome. I mean, you have to say that, right?
No. I would say that anyway, but I really mean, we are very excited about the depth of our team. Very excited. There's a lot of former national team athletes that came back. We've got former Olympians. The times that were coming out. Coach Tatey and Coach Terhar were very, very happy with how the team was coming together. Again, we're taking a pause, but we're very excited for the prospects of, and by the way, they're still going to be called the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, even though it's 2021. And I think most likely that was probably a money thing, because if you can imagine everything that would have been had to be changed, where it says Tokyo 2020 to Tokyo 2021,
that would have been that's a financial disaster. So I'd love to hear that you have a lot of excitement for the team. And you say the depth. I mean, does that go as far as like the men and women's pairs and the singles and everything, like all range of athletes?
Yes.
The good thing, like, I'm a huge fan of Olympic rowing and national team rowing. I'm really happy though, because all the other countries are going through the same thing. So it's not like the U.S. is the only one sitting on our hands kind of waiting, right?
No.
And having known a lot of national team rowers myself, I know those guys and girls are erging, running, working out every day.
Yep.
They're busting their humps right now just to prepare it. And you know what, quite honestly, as you said and pointed out before, like you now can focus, right? They can clear out the anxieties, the pressures. They can get back to center, right? And they can focus on what they need to fix before the Olympics. So fingers crossed that they do really well. This is what I do is I take notes, okay? And I circle a lot of things. And I love that you were a mom looking for a sport for her son. There is always a story behind someone who makes rowing their career. And your story is, you knew this silver medalist in the 80s. You kind of remembered crew. You were like, well, my son is lazy. I need to get him doing something. So I found the sport of rowing. And you turned that into a growing career over a 14-year period. I love that.
Who would have known? It certainly wasn't what I was thinking, but then I got into running the junior clubs, and I've got to say, and actually my son even said it a month or two ago, because now he's been in the workforce, he's working in DC, and he's just been going through the process of applying for business schools, and you got to do the essays and all of that. And basically he said, because it's a lot of soul searching, when if you're really trying to differentiate yourself from all the other folks that are applying at B school. And he said, I would not be the person I am without rowing. And, I've seen that so many times, when I was running this club in Delaware. I would have parents come in and say, what have you done to Maggie? Or what have you done to Joey? They are not the same person. And I remember also the one anecdote. There was one of these kids, a friend of my son, but really, really shy. He was 6'5", probably soaking wet, maybe 155 pounds in high school.
Wow.
And the first 3 months that he came into the rowing club, he looked at the floor. He was so shy.
Wow.
He just couldn't gaze into your eyes. And then again, you fast forward, let's call it 6-7 years, and I'm at the IRAs. It's representing US Rowing. And this guy comes up, he's all smiles. Mrs. Smith, how are you doing? I mean, this kid was not the same kid. He was extroverted. He would have never come and sought out someone to talk to, right? Yeah. And there's so many stories like that, especially, when you're seeing these kids get hooked at the junior level and then go to college. They might row in college, D1 or club or whatever. But the thing is, they are forever changed because we know our sport is so very special.
There's a really great thing. So you do a really good job of showing your passion and energy and excitement for the sport. And as a CEO, interim, whatever you want to say as a title, you're the one overseeing our organization here in rowing, and the passion that you have for the sport, but also the athletes in our sport, really shines through. And that's the kind of leader I think we all need, part of rowing. And this has been a wonderful thing here. And I'm looking back, and CJ and I joke that we want names now of our interviews. And I think we're going to call it Through in a Pandemic. I love that you're throwing this pandemic. You're kind of figuring things out, but you have a really good head on your shoulders. I love the passion that you have for the sport, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview. This has been absolutely wonderful, and I look forward to more of these in the coming week. We'll be doing more interviews with coaches, so I hope you've enjoyed watching this interview. I hope you enjoyed being part of it. And more from Rower's Choice in the near future. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Great.